Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. We are in a series on movement makers, how to start a movement, grow your movement. And we have a wonderful guest here, Ashanti Branch, who is working with both men and women, but they actually start off working with young men of color and helping them to change, transform their identity, how they feel about themselves and how they operate in the world. He is the founder of the Ever Forward Club, which was featured in a documentary called The Mask You Live In, and which was premiered at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival. He's been doing some amazing work with young men and young women, helping them to remove that mask that they have and be able to be vulnerable and honest and true about who they are. And I'm just so excited to have him here. Ashanti, welcome, Leaders of Transformation.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Well, I am so grateful to Mona Motwani, who you don't even know her, but she knows you. And when I was talking to her, she said, you've got to have Ashanti Branch on your show. And when I checked into and Googled you, I was like, absolutely, for sure. And that's why we reached out. So Mona, thank you for thinking about Ashanti so that we could actually have this conversation. And I've been able to, I've been able to even recommend what you're doing and share it with other people already, even prior to this conversation, this interview. And so the ripple effect, it's amazing. Leaders of transformation create ripples of impact that they don't even know, like where it goes, how it trickles out, and just one conversation, one suggestion. And so I would encourage, even for our listeners who are listening, who are thinking, am I a leader of transformation? How can I be a leader of transformation?
Yeah.
Just even following that nudge to say, I have this, this idea, or I want to make this connection between people, how valuable that is. You just never know the lives of people that you can impact through it. So we'd love to hear your stories. If you have suggestions for this show as well and what we're up to, please let us know. You can go to leadersoftransformation.com and find us through that. And of course on social media. So with that, Ashanti, tell us a little bit more about Ever Forward Club and your mission.
So thank you. I just want to say that, as we get on this conversation, there's so many things happening behind the scenes. I want to just speak to just this morning, like I was out running around and we got a call and I'm like, oh my God, I need to be in my office. And so technology issues. And so, what I realized in this work of leadership is that I kind of am always running. Yeah. And I think that when I started Ever Forward, it was not intentional. Like I was not trying to start a nonprofit. I can't imagine anybody thinks about, let me start a business where I got to be chasing money all the time in order to pay the people who are going to do the work. Like, I don't know that in the model that there's no profit model in what you're doing. What you're doing is the service. What you're doing is getting back to the community. What you're doing is trying to help lives of others be better, which sometimes in our society doesn't seem to have a financial reward to it. So you end up just doing it out of the kindness of your heart, but ultimately you need to survive. And so I speak about that just right now, just because it's a lot right now. As a leader, Ever Forward started in 2004. I was a first-year teacher. Like I never wanted to be a teacher. Like I wanted to be rich. I was raised by a single mother. We were poor. We were on welfare. And, and I realized that I have a choice in this matter. I mean, if I work, they told me it was a formula. They said, if you study hard, you go to college, you get a good job, you make a lot of money, you can live happily ever after. That's a 5-step formula I'll follow any day. If I get happiness ever after and I can make a lot of money, okay, all I gotta do is study hard. And so I followed the formula. And so when I went to school to be an engineer, I'm like, I'm about to be rich. I got a plan. And during that journey of my engineering work, and I became an engineer, but it was like, I'm making some really good money. I'm having fun with this money here, but the happiness ever after is not happening, And so Ever Forward, the journey, the movement came because I was in this job that I could do, but it wasn't feeling fulfilling. And I remember one day at work seeing one of the project managers in the corner wheeling and dealing. And I'm like, is that what I got to look forward to? Like I don't want to be doing that at 60 years old. I don't want to be doing that. So I realized that my mind was already thinking that what else is there. So I was a first year teacher doing a horrible job. Like, I love math. I like teaching math. I like students. It's a good formula. But the students, there was a lot of young men in my class who I identified with who weren't passing my class. So I was like, look, I'll quit. You know, I'm not going to be the teacher that you blame in the future who did a bad job because, you know, it made your life worse. You know, I'll go back to make money and find happiness somewhere else, you know. But something in me said, try something else. So I invited some young men to lunch. I said, look, I'll buy you lunch once a week. In exchange for lunch, teach me how to be a better teacher. And that's how the Ever Forward Club was started.
Wow.
It was just lunch meetings with these young men. And what they began to talk about is, you know, I ain't going to be no nerd, no geek, no teacher's pet. Everything about being smart to them was negative. And I realized that these students thought that smart wasn't cool. And they wanted to be cool. And so therefore, if you're in a community where smart's not cool and you want to be cool, then you're going to do whatever it takes so people don't ever think that you're smart. And that's what Everforward was about. It's like, look, maybe at least pretending to be smart is going to help you graduate. Like, how about we just figure out how you're going to graduate? Because your 13-year-old freshman immature self is going to sabotage your 18-year-old trying to move on with life self, and you're going to be too late. And so we just began to meet and have conversations. And I realized that I was like them in middle school. But I had a teacher who caught me. There was a Miss BP. I'll never forget her. She said to me one day in detention, she said, life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you what you get, and you got to make the most out of it. And I was sad. I had a lot of sadness, but in my community, boys can't be sad. I was sad that I didn't have a father. I was afraid that I had a situation in my home where my mom had married a guy who wasn't really nice. I was afraid that a lot of stuff that happens at home. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I can't show these emotions. So I always got to be funny, happy, or angry, because those are respected emotions for men in my community. Happy, wow. I don't care, or angry, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened with Everforward is there's a journey. It's 2004 till we're now in 2020. Amazing. 16 years later, we've created this movement called the 100,000 Mask Challenge. And, you know, when I started this idea with masks, it wasn't trying to change the world. I had 8 young men in a room who every week they came together. They just lied to each other. Like, everybody's doing perfect. They're on a scale from 1 to 10. Everybody's a 10. Everybody's a 10. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. I'm a 10. Got 1 9 over there, but everybody's a 10. I'm like, yeah, no, you're not a 10. You know, I was a dean that year, so I knew what was going on behind the image. I'm like, you got kicked out of 5 classes today. How are you a 10? But in front of each other, they had to tell that story. And what I knew that when they wanted to come and, you know, share, you know, film my work, I said, well, I just want you to know these young men gonna lie. They just lie to each other. You know, my job is a whole space. I know what's going on behind the scenes. I can't tell their stuff in the circle. Yeah. They got to tell it. And the mask activity came with me trying to find a way for them to take off that mask. Like, how do you recognize that you're going? How about you don't talk about it? How about you just write it? And when we created that first activity where they wrote those masks, and they wrote on the front what they let people see, in the back what they don't let people see, and then those masks got mixed up with that little snowball fight we had. It was absolutely, when it worked, I was hoping it was going to work. I was willing to try anything. I had tried so many other things, and when it worked, it absolutely changed my life. It changed the lives of those young men in the room. And I think the people who see the documentary can see young men get to a place of like, oh, wow, it's not just me. Like, I'm not alone. And so that's a long journey of, like, you know, starting this thing to now this movement that we created. But I didn't start trying to create a movement. I started trying to help these young men in my math class be successful because I wanted them to be able to have a journey of a life and be able to choose to go and follow your heart rather than following the money, because I'd experienced that. And so that's how we got to today. You know, I mean, it's a 16 years in that little short time frame, but it's been a beautiful journey.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared that journey, because as we talk about how to start a movement and why to start a movement is actually the more important question. And it is actually a common theme through all of the people that I've had on this show during this series, and even prior to, because Leaders of Transformation is about people that are creating transformation in the world, is that they didn't set out to do that. Right? They set out to, just like you know, to help some people. They saw a need, and started to explore that and get into that conversation with someone. And then it kind of grew from there and into what it looks like today. And that's powerful for people to realize that I think that human beings, we all want to help other people. If we can get beyond ourselves, we can get beyond our own survival and all that, is that we want to make a difference. But then how do we do that? And you hear nowadays a lot of like, I want to be a thought leader and I want to be an influencer. And I don't know, like the people that are truly influencers and the people that are truly thought leaders, I've never met one that actually set out to be that. They set out to help somebody to discover something new. And then through the process of their discovery, like you, that they found themselves, people asking them, can we, video you? Can we learn more about what you're doing? Oh, well, I'm just doing this thing with these 8 boys in a room. And as a result of that, you're changing lives, and people want to know about that. So it's really, really powerful. So, when we talk about this idea of the mask, right? Yeah. And I love what you did there with the snowball, because like the snowball fight, because for those listening or watching, what they do is they write it on the back, and then they throw it, like they kind of do a snowball fight where they throw it at each other. They ball it up into a ball. And so they're not actually reading their own, they're reading someone else's. And creates that safe place, which is really powerful, because a lot of times we just don't want to share our own, but we can share and say, oh, this isn't me. But then you realize that everyone is actually saying the same thing. It's like, it's just so powerful. But that mask, so talk about the, like, what's the process? Okay. So they discover this and they say, wow, we're all saying the same thing. The front of the mask, hey, everything's good. And on the behind the scenes, I'm feeling all these emotions. How do you use that to then transform, to develop the conversations that actually transform their identity, how they feel about themselves, how they see each other, and how they bond together?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And I actually, I was at a workshop yesterday, and so I have some masks here. So these are all young men in this space. But so what I start with is empathy. Like, I think sometimes when I work with educators and we train people to do this in their classes, we give them the curriculum away so people can use it as a part of this movement. I say, look, your job is not to try and fix them.
Yeah.
Your job is trying to bring it into awareness that they're not alone. I think the biggest goal of this campaign has been, how do we help people around the world recognize that we have so much more in common with people around us than we can ever see with our eyes. And oftentimes our eyes are what makes the judgment. And so therefore our brains say, well, we're not alike. I got a call the other day, a young man who was in our program 7 years ago, just had a breakup, his first breakup. Like, he's been with the same person for 10 years. And now he's like, what do I do? Who am I by myself? Who am I? Can I let all my friends go? And I put all this time in this relationship, and now I don't have who. And so just the challenges of this work is so beautiful. And I think what I was saying before, I had some technology challenges, was that the work that we do with the mask is really helping young people recognize that they're not alone. That as an educator, as a person who is helping them do that work, my job is not to fix their lives. My job is to say, hey, how can I be of support of you in the life you want to create? Because if I get tied, and in the early days of Ever Forward, I tried to do that. I tried to be like, well, I'm giving you advice. You should take my good advice. I'm giving you really good advice. I can see what you do, where you're going down this road is not going to be good. And when I began to take myself away from being connected to the results, it changed my life. Because when I get connected to the results, I want you to do it so that you have a great life. And if you don't do it, I feel like I failed. I feel like I failed you. But ultimately, all I can do is just be a vessel here to give. And I'm just open hands. I'm going to give and I expect nothing in return. I 100% know that if I get clear about that, then my work is done with the best intentions. That I'm just here to offer wherever I can support you in being who you want to grow to be. And if I've had to help mentors a lot through this work around helping them say, you can't get tied to the results. They're not your results.
Yeah.
That's that person's life, whether they're 14, 19, 28. Like, they're going to do what they need to do for their life. And ultimately, you can just provide whatever they're willing to let you provide for them. And I think that's in the work. And so what we do is when we give them a chance to recognize they're not alone, I'm gonna just pick up a mask from yesterday. This is a random one. I got a bunch of them, but I hadn't filtered these. So it's a 17-year-old young man. If you look here, can you see it right side up? Or you can see
Yep.
it.
Yep. I
Okay.
see it.
So on the front, it says loyal, put together, candid. And then on the back, the things that this person doesn't talk about, grades, insecurities, and family. And I could go through this stack of young people, and you will see very similar stuff. But who am I to try and fix your family? Who am I to try and fix your insecurities? I can just tell you that I think you're incredible. I think you're amazing.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do. And I can tell you that some of the stories you're telling yourself are just that, just stories that you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
If you either have to believe the stories you're telling yourself or say, maybe I can tell myself a different story. If I can tell myself that I'm not good enough, if I tell myself that I'm not important enough, if I tell myself I'm not special, what if I just change the story I tell myself? I mean, you told yourself that story. How about you just try and tell yourself a different story? And whether you do it or not, I can't control. But when I can give young people a space just to recognize that, wait a minute, in this room, there's another young person who's dealing with sadness and anger and fear. And oh, wait, I thought we were all perfect here at this beautiful school or this hurtful school. Like, why do I not know? Because we often don't talk about it. Oftentimes when we ask people how they're doing, we're 2 feet away from them before they even answer, because we don't give them time to answer the question. How you doing is a greeting as opposed to an inquiry about how somebody's really doing. And so what if we began to use that question only when we had time to listen to someone? What if we began to know that, hey, I just want you to know that I see you. There's this quote by Carl Jung, and I've been hearing it a lot lately as I've been listening to some new mentors. And it says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Oh, that's good.
You make the unconscious conscious. If you don't make the fact that you are walking around with all this stuff you're not talking about, and you don't even think that you think you're being your full self.
Yeah.
But not really. You're being what you want people to see, or what you let them see, or what they allow you to show them. What about all the stuff of you that doesn't exist, that you don't get to show? Well, until you make that conscious that you're only showing part of yourself, then you should recognize people are not going to get you for real.
Yes.
People don't get you. Well, are you being all of yourself? Yeah, of course I am. Let's make this mask. And then you realize there's all these things I'm not showing about myself that, I don't want to show them that. Well, great. That's why they're not getting you. They're only getting a part of you. And so therefore they're defining you based on only the part that you're willing to let them see. And therefore, if you want them to see you for real, you may have to let them see more, or find the people who can handle that. And so that's our work with young people, is really not to try and change them, but to try and uplift them and say, you are valuable and important. But we got to get to a place of having authentic conversations. Otherwise, we should be expected. No one's going to really understand us or get us. And that's what our work is. And that's the work we do. Young people, with teachers, with parents, with communities all over. And, this campaign, the 100,000 Mask Challenge, we've reached 14 countries. We collected over 43,000 masks. And, the momentum is moving really big right now. So our goal is to hit our goal by May. So Memorial Day weekend, which is our big celebration for us here at Ever Forward.
That is amazing. Well, and I love that you're not trying to, when you said you're not trying to fix them, oftentimes that's what we try to do. And I notice for myself, I coach people for a living too, is we project on oftentimes on other people what's actually going on for ourselves. So even as an educator or a coach or a mentor or when we want to fix them, oftentimes, do you notice that it's really something that's going on in ourselves? If we're okay, then they can be okay, and then we can all be okay. And, so there's that. And then there's also this idea of this comparison. I notice that we oftentimes will compare our weaknesses to other people's strengths. And so, we look at other people and they look like a 10, and we may say we're a 10, but we know we're not. And so we know we're lying. And then of course you get imposter syndrome and all this kind of stuff. So just really subtle. Oftentimes the most profound shifts, the transformation is not complicated. Right. It's just being willing to go there. And that's what there's a simplicity in what you're doing. It's the hard work, but there's a simplicity in what you're doing, is just like encouraging them, creating a space for them. It doesn't have to be complicated. They don't need to go to school get a psychology degree to be able to figure themselves out necessarily, but creating that space for them, and that it eliminates that isolation where people feel so alone. I hear that a lot, where people will say, I just feel so alone.
Yeah.
I feel like nobody knows, nobody understands my story. Nobody understands my situation because they've got it all going on. And then social media, of course, encourages that, because we've got all these selfies and everybody's got their pictures and it looks so cool and so awesome. I'm just having so much fun. Life is amazing. And then behind the scenes, there's a whole different story going on. So just so powerful. Now, where does this mask come from? Like, why do we have these masks in the first place?
I think it's a great question. I think I'm reading this book by Mark Brackett called Permission to Feel. And what it starts off with is like, when was the last time somebody asked you how you feel and really meant it, right? So if some people have a hard time, when was the last time somebody said, how do you feel?
Yes.
And really meant it. Because sometimes we don't really ask people that, but also, do we even know what we feel?
Yes.
There's this phrase and it talks about, like, if you can name it, then you can tame it. But if you can't even name how you feel, how do you deal with it? There could be many ways of how I would look if I'm like happy or sad or solemn, right? Like if I'm just looking normal day, I'm not even thinking about how I'm emoting. I'm just standing there. You may think I was upset because that's just how my lips are curved, right? I'm not mad. I'm just here. I'm doing fine. But what we, based on what we see, we think, well, that person is feeling not doing so good. We don't ask. And so I think the bigger picture is, do we get a chance, and how do people really care enough to even let us tell them how we're doing? I think the masks are created from young. I mean, I see, I'm always preparing or watching how parents, fathers, mothers interact with little boys, because I didn't have a father growing up. So I'm always like watching fathers and, thinking about what it would have been like for me to have a father. But I'm always watching. And I notice this idea that they start early. We tell boys when they're little, stop crying. We tell them, stop crying like a little girl. We tell them, don't be like, we tell them, we say things to them to conform them to how we want them to behave. And then we're confused when they become adults and we ask them how they're feeling and they don't have anything to say. Because the things that they were feeling at one point, you recognize that you didn't want to hear or see, and therefore we had to shut them off. And you learn early those patterns. You learn those patterns of, oh, this emotion can't be accepted in this house, in this family, in this person, with these friends. So I got to shut them down. And then we get confused. I tell people, look, our jails are full of men. Jails are 94% men. So just percentage-wise, if you just look at percentages, something's wrong there. I don't think something's wrong with men. I think we taught men things when they were boys that when they become adults, they can't live among a lot of the free, because violence comes through this idea of not dealing with your trauma. I think there's a quote, I don't know who says it, but it says, violence is what happens when we don't know how to deal with our suffering. When we're dealing with stuff, we're dealing with sadness and fear and emotions. I knew that when I was in middle school and getting in trouble a lot, I was dealing with a lot of sadness and fear in my life, but I don't have a place to talk about that. So I just stuff it and make everything funny or happy or angry. And angry is always usually easier, and it comes quickly, and therefore people get it. They get it. You can't be too happy. You can't, like, so I think that it's about, the mask comes from a programming, words, emotions, feelings that we get from people as we grow up that says, here are the things that are acceptable here, and here are the things that are not acceptable here. Like my mom, I love my mom. And I'm thankful for her. But I could tell when my mom got out of the car, when she came home from work, if it was going to be a bad day or a good day. And I'm like, uh-oh, she's slinging her bags out of the car. It's about to be so I'm like, okay, let's put on this mask of like trying to make everything okay and make her calm so she doesn't come in, on a tirade about the dust or anything. Like I had a programming in my head that that's not going to be good for us. And I was the oldest and I was running the house. So I was a man of the house. So my job was like, how do I protect all of my siblings from, my mom who may just had a bad day. And so hey mom, how you doing? Come here, have a seat. Let me get you something to drink. Relax. Already started like it becomes a programming in ourselves, right? And so I think that's where the mask comes from. I think that they become really powerful. And I had one young man in the session say, sometimes if you start wearing this mask, you can forget who you really are.
Yes. You don't even know, like you said, you don't even know that you're wearing a mask in the first place. So how do you get rid of the mask when you don't even know that it's there?
That's right.
Yeah. What's interesting what you said about your mom, oftentimes that also happens on the flip side, is parents will coddle their children. So the child, it's like we hear, so as a girl, you might have heard as a boy, man up, don't cry, sissies don't cry, don't cry like a girl. There's the other side is that even for girls, they'll say things like, don't cry, everything will be okay, right? Mm-hmm. And they try to coddle us and try to make us feel better without actually, and it's well-meaning, right? But we don't realize, and of course that comes from their upbringing. This is the ripple effect, right? Through generations, where it's like, well, don't cry, it'll be okay, or wipe that smirk off your face, or go back to your room and come out when you've got a good attitude, or you got a smile on your face. Well, I can come out with a smile on a face, doesn't mean anything has changed underneath the surface, right?
That's right.
And that's the mask, and it's like, oh, this is the way that we do things around here. And then you hear, like, as adults, we hear stories and we're like, why are there so many mass shootings, and why are things happening, and there's so much violence, and that documentary talks about that. The statistics are horrible, right? And a lot of them are these men, and people say, well, we need to have gun control, right? We need to lock down our schools. Well, maybe we need to look at why they're doing it in the first place. Like, what goes through somebody's mind to think, you know what, as a 13-year-old, a 20-year-old, or whatever, or even in the adults, but young people going into their own schools and shooting their fellow students. What was going through their mind to cause them to have to feel that they had to express themselves in that way?
Yeah.
So getting to cause. I mean, I've had over 300 plus guests on this show, and we talk about different elements of leaders, of leadership and transformation, how these leaders are creating transformation. But when you get right down to being at cause, it's about identity, right? That's where transformation happens. Transforming the way that we see ourselves, the way we see others, and the way that we see the world around us. When we can transform at that level, which is the level that you're working on, right? I mean, there's levels of, it's like up here, we can teach skills, we can teach communication skills, we can teach how people can be nice to each other and the appropriateness of what you're supposed to do. And then you go deeper and deeper into this, and we can create more legislation, more control, right? But down here is where you're working. And so it's no surprise, like you said, every day there's something, if things are not going on and going a little sideways, or here, it's like, what am I missing? Maybe you're not out there. Maybe you're not putting yourself out there on the edge, of transformation. In that case, it's like everything's going smoothly. If you're nice in your comfort zone, then are you creating transformation? If that's the case, probably not. So this is where this work is happening. It's this identity. That's why I'm so excited about what you're doing, because it's the deep work. It's at the core of the heart of somebody, of like, what do they feel about themselves? How do they feel about, and to your point about the feeling, I actually have something I learned from one of my mentors in my coaching sessions. I would say, to people, what do you feel like saying? And it's a way of presencing people. And most people will say they'll say what they think, but not what they feel. Right? Well, this is what happened. To the answer to the question of what do you feel like saying, they will go to, well, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. No, the operative word is feel. What do you feel that you need to express so that you can be present in the moment? And we don't have a framework for that. Most people don't know how they feel. How can they possibly articulate in words? So
there's lots of things that what you just said just opened up so many thoughts, and like, I'm trying to figure out where I should start, but I want to say this. There's this book that I'm reading called I Don't Want to Talk About It. And it talks about men the unseen level of men in depression, right? And one part of the book I just want to speak about is when you said about how, what girls may have gotten or things like that. I was at a sister, so there were different rules, right? But in this, they talk about this idea that girls are taught in public not to, and this is a generality, so let me say it's a generality because everybody's family is different, but they're taught not to show their assertive self in
Right.
public. But boys are taught the opposite, that you got to show your assertive self or something's wrong with you. You're supposed to be assertive. And then we're confused as to why what happens when we grow up is we get people in society that are acting certain ways. Because I think when we talk about the school shootings, that's a very deep, intense level. But imagine how many businesses that the CEO goes in shooting people down with words every day, where there's no
Yes.
psychological safety, where there's this idea that I'm not violent, but I'm speaking in tones that feel like violence. I'm speaking
Yes.
in words that feel not affirming and supportive and caring and loving and kind. And so what happens
Absolutely.
is we oftentimes like use the examples that are the most dramatic, which are absolutely crucial to talk about. And then we sometimes overlook the unkind stuff because we say, well, that's just his character. That's just their personality. And I think that this idea of like us being more, I think that our world just need more kindness. I think that's what I believe truly. And in our work, we tell young men, like, let's start with kindness. Like, I think it's easy to do. You may not
Yes.
be used to it. You may not be used to people being kind to you. You may think they want something from you because they're being nice to you. But what about just being able to try it? And that's the work, right? Like, how do we get to a place of like just making that so many things we operate under unconscious and we make them conscious, and then we can begin saying, okay, oh man, I've been operating like this automatically. Sometimes I come to my office and I've been running around. I'm like, hey, everybody, hi. But I know I'm on a mission. I got to get this grant finished. I got to get this new call happening. And I'm just like, and then I'll come back and say, hey, folks, sorry, I was in the middle of, I try and like, I recognize I wasn't like walking in very like, hey, everybody, how you doing? How was your weekend? I'm like, my mind is thinking about 18 things, and I don't want to be disconnected from people. I like people. But how do you make sure that you put that unconscious and you put it conscious? Hey, I know I walked in just totally off. My mind's going through a lot. So they don't think that it's them, right? Because kids will do the same. The
Yes.
parents don't speak about what they're really going through. The kids they'll make it about themselves. I
Yeah.
did something. What did I do, right? And I think
Well, we
those are
hear
the
that. We hear that with even divorces, and then kids blame themselves for their parents getting divorced. How did they make that association? But they do all the
yeah.
time. Yeah. That's very powerful what you said there about it's not just the extreme, it's the everyday, it's the leader, it's the person, it's being unkind to the stranger that you see, the cashier at the store. It's where it plays out, the anger, the aggressive nature plays out in all these different ways, and we can do something about that, and we can show up differently. And then it's interesting that when you're nice, when you're kind to people, how they respond back, you know, and where we can be that change, just like Mahatma Gandhi talks about. You know, Gandhi says that you can be the change that you want to be in the world, right? And so rather than trying to change others and make them be the change,
Yeah.
like you were talking about earlier, is to be the change ourselves. So very, very powerful. So what has been your biggest struggle as a leader? So you were a teacher, you were an engineer, then you decided to become a teacher, and now you got this movement. You
Yeah.
got all these people that are looking to you and saying, where are we going? What are we doing? How can
Yeah.
I support you?
Yeah.
How are we going to fund this? Hello, right? How are we going to do all this? And you're thinking, I
Uh,
didn't sign up for this, but it's there you are. So as a leader, what has been your greatest struggle or challenge, and how have you dealt with it?
wow, that's a great question. Oh, we got to stretch for that one. That's a yoga question. I would say there's so many, and I would say the biggest challenge was in the last year. I would say I'm coming to an awareness. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to run an organization. I started mentoring young men in my classroom And one lady said, hey, I want to give you some money, but you need your nonprofit status so I can give you money. I'm like, what does that mean? You got to go get this thing from the IRS, and you got, like, I'm like, so the only way you're going to give me money is if I go and do this thing? And how long? Okay. And then I realized this is a book you got to write. And then I'm realizing, wait, so now what do I do? And then you got to realize, oh, how do I keep the nonprofit status? I got to turn in some receipts what do I got to do? And how do I keep track of all that? I'm teaching. I'm just mentoring young people after school and weekends and holidays. What? And then I realized, so I could go into a deep well of what's happening now. So I got clear early on this last year in 2019 that when you have to whom much is given, much is required. And I've been given a big dream. And so even though I didn't sign up to be trying to figure out how to run a board or create the board of directors and make sure that I didn't sign up for any of that. I signed up to help mentor young people in my community. But since my dream is big, then I have to be responsible for what it takes to really build that dream. And that means also not me having to do it all. I'm working on learning how to ask for help. I think one of my biggest challenges is asking for help. I'd rather not bother people. I can tell what busy people look like. And I say, oh, I don't want to bother them. Even when people come to me at the end of a talk and they say, well, let me know how I can help. It makes me feel so good. I never do it because I don't want to bother people. I'm like, you're already busy enough. How do you offer me some help? But I know you're already busy. And I think that what I've been learning is that people offer it. One of my mentors said, look, Ashanti, do you do what you do for money? I'm like, of course not, right? He says, so the people who are offering you to help, why are you not accepting it? Well, because I don't want to bother them. He says, but they offered it. Don't you like what you do? I'm like, yes. So why are you taking away the opportunity for them to give like you get to give? You're being selfish. I'm like, what? I'm being selfish by not asking people for help? And he's like, just take it in. And it's really for me to just get unclear about my own work is that I think I'm helping them by not even bothering them to ask them for help, even when they offered it. Because psychologically, I just don't want to bother them. But deep down, I never thought that they would want to get some of the good feeling I get from getting to do this work. And I never thought of it that way. And I think it's just me growing as a leader. I'm clear that, there's entrepreneurs in my family. And there's probably some entrepreneurs in there, but we didn't learn about entrepreneurship growing up. I didn't learn about building a business. I learned how to work really hard. And one of my challenges as a leader is also, I want to do it. I'm a hard worker. So I want to be doing this stuff. I'm working to learn how to delegate. It's that thing where, okay, I don't want to, it's going to take me 10 minutes to tell you how to do it. Oh, damn, I lost you. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. It may take me 10 minutes to tell you how to do it. In my mind, I'm like, I can do it in 5 minutes. But I'm not just teaching you for this one thing. I'm teaching you for the next few things. So I just got to get back into my teacher mindset sometimes. And sometimes I'm thinking, I feel like I'm still a teacher. Like I thought I left the classroom 5 years ago. I'm still teaching all the time, right? And so I think that this idea of a leader is people make it look so glamorous on movies, but there's so much behind the scenes. Like today, I want to speak some serious truth. Today is Thursday. My grandmother passed last Thursday on my way to Stanford for a presentation. And so, how do you deal with still needing to go to work?
Yeah.
While you're trying to deal with grief. Yeah. I don't need to spill my problems on my team. I want to be human, but I don't work. I can't stop the company because I'm going through stuff. And so you try to keep showing up. How do you keep showing up? So emotions are like waves. And so part of my work, because I work at an organization that's about helping people around social, emotional well-being, is about how do I keep living the work that I'm teaching? And it's I can't hide it. I could just pretend like everything's fine and I'm running a little slower than normal because I'm just running a little, I could just pretend that it's no big, but it's happening. And there's a dance between how much do I tell them and how much I keep to myself and trying to just still be present, right? When I'm dealing with family drama, right? Stuff that I didn't plan to deal with. I got a lot of other things on my plate, right? We got a gala coming up next month. We got this, I got a presentation. I'm layers and layers. But how do you continue to keep showing up and being kind to others, and even when I'm going through some have tough times. So I think the work as a leader, the challenges are like practicing what I preach. I practice like giving yourself, find the right people who can help you take the mask off. You can't do it with everybody, but find the right people so that you can go and be able to just cry and just feel and not pretend like everything's okay. So I think those are the things that are constant daily reminders in this work, constant daily reminders of this work that I'm doing human connection work. Heart work is hard work. And it's not just hard with paying the people, and it's hard because you take in from people in this way, and you got to make sure you have a way of dealing with it yourself, because you're helping them process some of their stuff. And then where do you go and process yours? I think in my early days of this work, I never thought about myself. So I was just taking all this stuff from people, and then I ended up like, I feel I hit a wall, and I didn't know what was happening. It was like, what's going on? And I started learning from some mentors that you got to have a place of letting go of some of that stuff yourself, because you're taking all this stuff from these young people who they know they get to come and share it with you. Like, do you take it on, you carry it and wear it, or do you let it come in, you let it fly out? Like you don't like hold on to it all, right? Because you can only hold on to so much. And that's the work. There's so many layers of the challenges. There's the challenges of the business stuff, and then there's the challenges of just being an authentic human, even when you're supposed to be the boss and you're supposed to have all the answers. And sometimes I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I don't even know what to do next. I don't know how to. I got an email from somebody the other day that was complicated to deal with. I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? I just need to like breathe on it a couple of days, Like I don't know what to do. Where do I start? Right. And so all the layers is just a part of my own growth and development as I'm trying to, be a person who is helping people around the world in their own stuff that they deal with. So that's been the beauty of it, and sometimes the challenges of it.
Wow. And thank you. And my condolences for your loss. And I want to acknowledge you also in your courage and your honesty and your vulnerability, just to be real, to be able to do the work and to do what you teach. And that's leadership. Like right there, you're just like such an incredible example of a leader who is in it. And like, this is real stuff. And so I want to acknowledge you for that. And what you said in there is having people around you that you can go to, that you trust, that you can be vulnerable with, not just everybody, not going on social media. Those are cries for help a lot of times because they don't have the inner circle. And so developing that inner circle as a youth, but also as an adult, what you're talking about, it doesn't change. My dad used to say, like, we tell our kids, be careful who you play around with, play with, because you're going to become like them. Well, what changed? As an adult, it's the same thing. Who are you hanging out with? And also, to take it another step further, who are you hanging out with that you can journey along together and take the mask off,
That's right.
Be real. And in that, people get to see you, you get to see them, and that's where transformation happens, when people get real about who they are with other and find people that they can do that with. So it's just super powerful. So thank you.
Thank you.
For our listeners, I encourage you to go to everforwardclub.org and find out more about what Ashanti Branch and their team are doing, and learn how to take off your own mask and be able to help other people take their mask and create a space, a safe place where people around you, that your kids and your spouse or whoever, your friends, get to take their mask off with you, that you could be that kind of person that they feel safe with. There's also a TED Talk that Ashanti has done, and we'll make sure that link is in the show notes. It's powerful. Also, the documentary that I was talking about, we'll make sure all of this is in the show notes on leadersoftransformation.com. I highly recommend that you get, they've got this initiative for 100,000 masks by Memorial Day in May 2020. And so be one of those people that will take off the mask and will be part of that initiative. But it doesn't end there. It begins there. because it goes from 100,000 to 1,000,000. If we can help people around the world take their masks off, wow, what a different world we would live in. So I encourage you, leaders of transformation, take action. Do something today so that you can take action towards that outcome, and so we can see the impact that we want to see in this world. So I encourage you that. I'd love to hear your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You can find me also, of course, on social media. Contact us. Let us know what you're doing. Let us know what you're planning to do and how we can help you along this journey. You might find that you say, I don't have an inner circle. I don't have people that I can be vulnerable with. And, I need some people that I can share my idea with and get feedback on it and so forth. Well, we've got a community of people that can be that. And so we encourage you to reach out, and we look forward to hearing your stories. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.